certainly a powerful backdrop, and especially for a presidential campaign over this past weekend, where Mitt Romney and his wife, they went to the Western Wall. It's tradition to leave a prayer or a message in the cracks of the ancient wall, which is a symbol of the Jewish people. Now, Romney said he left a message about his wife, his family, as well as peace. But those thoughts of both peace and also of family were overshadowed by some decidedly unpeaceful comments that came from the Romney camp. Now, while in Israel, one of Romney's top foreign policy advisors said, quote, "If Israel has to take action on its own in order to stop Iran from developing the capability, that the governor would respect then that decision." Here's how Romney responded to questions about that very comment.
I think I'll use my own terms in that regard, and that is that I recognize the right of Israel to defend itself. At the same time, we are, as two nations, both committed to employing every means we have to keep Iran from pursuing their nuclear folly. And that means every diplomatic course, economic forces as well. Sanctions are beginning to have a greater impact on Iran.
Now, Romney went on to say that although he supports using soft power, that he would employ, quote, military options as well. As expected, Romney received a warm welcome from Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu, but not such a warm welcome from the Palestinians, who he, quote, insulted by saying culture is not the reason, or is the reason, that Israel is more economically advanced than the Palestinian territories. Now, senior aide to Palestinian President Abbas, he called those statements, quote, racist, and he also angered Palestinians by suggesting that if elected, he'd move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which he called the real capital. Andrew, is this pro forma for a Republican candidate here, going in there saying, you know, hand in hand, we're your allies? Or did he go over the line, as some suggest?
It's pro forma to say that you're an ally with Israel. It's anything but pro forma to basically hand over your entire foreign policy to a foreign country.
But how do you do that? Why don't you say you do what you want, we'll do what we want?
Well, because first of all, we're supposed to be allies, so you would think that we would be looking for peaceful options to try to contain in Iran. But it wasn't so much just about Israel has the right to use force, almost saying, like, go ahead, go ahead, we'll sit on the sidelines while you do it. But also saying we're not going to, you know, not proposing any additional options for what the United States could possibly do to get in this process, and basically signing off in advance to whatever it is that Netanyahu, not Israel, wants to do when it comes to Iran. I thought that was a punt. I thought, and there were so many other aspects of this trip that I thought were just appalling, and I'm sure we'll get to those.
Politically, Dominic, the base that he was speaking to on this trip, obviously, you know, anyone who supports the state of Israel, he was trying to make it clear that he was their best friend, but there's other groups as well.
There are, but we have to keep focus on the fact that he is playing to Jewish voters here in America. That's his overriding point. That's something that you'd expect from a Republican candidate.
I actually disagree with that, but
really,
I do.
You don't think it's a play
I think he's playing to Jewish votes. He's playing to the Shelley Adelsons of the world, absolutely. But I think he's also playing to evangelical Christians, and I think he's trying to put some space between, or you know, blow up the president's foreign policy credentials, as it were, by giving the impression that somehow President Obama is anti-Israel or isn't a friend to Israel.
That's been a sentiment for a very long time, an ongoing one.
Yeah, I mean, that plays in red state after red state, and in pockets of blue states too. And I think that's a misnomer. But
you know, I think, Jeannie, if I even polled the Romney family, if they could do it anonymously, they'd agree that Mitt had a tough time in London, okay? And that foot in mouth, and he kept making it worse and worse as the day went on. You have any problem with what he did in Israel, though, or not?
You know, I think the trip was designed to try to take Barack Obama on what he, quite frankly, scores highest in the polls right now, which is his foreign policy, which looking 4 years ago is kind of interesting.
And you know from history, when you look at polling, Democrats usually don't do better than Republican counterparts.
But he is just so pitiful in terms of his economic policies that he's scoring higher in his foreign policy. I said that just for you liberals, by the way. But let me just say, to your point, I think it has been a very difficult trip for Mitt Romney, from London to Israel and now to Poland. I mean, mean, I think he's made a number of gaffes. So in a way, he was trying to, you know, poke a hole in what has been Mitt Romney, President Obama's strongest area, and it has not panned out that way. And I do think we saw him trying to come off hawkish and then backing away from that, and that is a problem for Mitt Romney.
I just have to point this out. Romney spent a lot of time on this trip in Israel saying, you know, Israeli settlements, not a problem. You look at the insult to Palestinians, look at, it was about their earnings. Look at the per capita value or net worth of Palestinians versus Israelis, which is an indication that somehow Palestinians aren't worthy or aren't as good as Israelis are. And in the same breath, he then turns around and says, but I support a two-state solution. He doesn't support a two-state solution. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't support a two-state solution.
You know,
there are plenty of people in Israel who do.
This is inside baseball, at least for maybe some of us, but Shelley Adelson was sitting right next to him during the event. Now, for those who know, he was Newt Gingrich's guy. He was the only one who was basically back in the bankrolling his campaign for a while. And he took shots, by the way, at Romney throughout the campaign. But he's this squirrely guy. I was surprised that he gave him that much of a high-profile spot when you're going on an international tour.
Well, but there's millions of dollars of reasons why he gave him such a high-profile spot. I don't think, I mean, Adelson, by the way, is a little bit of a Rupert Murdoch in Israel. He owns a newspaper that is very pro-Netanyahu. He wants Romney and Netanyahu to succeed in that policy. He also has domestic agendas back here at home. It's an ugly marriage, and I thought putting him front and center was a little distasteful.
But it's often done. It's often done with high-profile backers. Because I remember going to Israel with Bloomberg and Giuliani, and who's the publisher of the Daily News?
Zuckerman.
He was standing right there. Yeah. So I've seen several trips where major players are there.
All right, fair enough.